almost heaven. West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is all there, older than the trees.
Attention citizens.
Younger
Nuclear
than
strike
the
imminent.
mountains, blowing
Please
like
exit
the
the area
breeze.
at your earliest convenience. Thank you for your cooperation.
Hello. Good evening, Greg. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you, Ash?
Very good. Very good. We are in for another episode of Fallout Monsters, episode 4, I want to say.
I think so, yep.
I
I think so.
This month,
what cryptid creature monster are we talking about this time?
so we've had a little discussion about how to pronounce this one. And
Yeah.
I do believe both pronunciations are correct. However, I also found a third one, but I'll just leave that one. So it's the Wendigo or the Wendigo.
Wendigo. Okay.
Wendigo, the scary Wendigo legend. So, like previous episodes, I'll talk about how this creature is portrayed in Fallout 76, and then we'll talk about the actual stories behind the real version of the Wendigo.
Yes. Creepy.
Very creepy. And I don't know too much about the real story, so I'm looking forward to that. But the in-game version is pretty mad. So if it's anything like the game's sort of folklore around it, the game lore, then yeah, it's very, very creepy.
It would sit right in a computer game as a monster, let's just say that.
Cool. So in the game, the Wendigo is depicted as a tall, thin humanoid with long arms and legs, giving it an unsettling, almost spider-like appearance. Its grey skin is covered in bony spikes and ridges, and its glowing yellow eyes and sharp claws giving a menacing look. One of the most distinctive features of the Wendigo in Fallout 76 is its ability to emit a high-pitched shriek that can stun and disorient players. So what happens is one of the versions of it is like a boss type version of it. And when it does this shriek, basically you lose control of, you can't control your character anymore. And your player runs away, like scared, like runs away in this big cave. It's just going, and the player's all run off and you can't fight because you've like got too scared because of this shriek that comes from it. In addition to physical attacks, the Wendigo's ability to regenerate quickly makes it a tough opponent to defeat, and it's recommended that players bring heavy weapons and plenty of ammunition when facing the Wendigo. But it is hard to beat, and the loot and the rewards and experience from killing, especially the high level ones, are good for in-game.
Cool.
So the lore around the Wendigo in the game. So getting this from the nerdstash.com, who's got a bit of the Fallout lore, which says that the creature was once a human called Morris Stevens, who was once the leader of a raider tribe of cannibals called the Gurmans, which once terrorized the Savage Divide region in the game, which is like kind of the middle of the map in Fallout 76. The day came when this group made the troubling discovery that in fact their leader had broken the cardinal rule of do not eat other members of the gang. They're only supposed to eat other people, not their own. A wolf does not eat a wolf, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Lupus non morde lupum, for a bit of Latin. Lupus non morde lupum, which is a wolf does not eat a wolf.
I've never heard that.
I've got it tattooed on my arm. That's the only reason why.
Have you?
I know it. Yeah.
That's quite. I like that. Yeah, I did.
It's the motto for the Warrington Wolves rugby league team.
I would have guessed it
Oh,
was either
so.
that or a rock band or something.
Yeah, so a wolf does not eat a wolf. Just came to me. That's like, yeah, very similar. That you don't eat your own gang.
Correct.
Eat other people, just not your own. So they kicked him out, and in exile, Morris and his wife found refuge in a cave that will ironically be later known in the game as the Wendigo cave. The couple made the cave home, and for a while things were not too bad. Morris would go out hunting and bring back huge bounties of human meat for himself and his wife, but she only received a little bit of it. He ate most of it. But Mr. Stevens kept getting greedier and hungrier, as if all the meat he was getting couldn't satiate himself. He was just getting hungrier and hungrier all the time. And the two started changing, like physically, but it was more apparent with Mr. Stevens. And already rout with a hunger that nothing could satiate, Mr. Stevens finally gave in to the hunger, murdered his wife, and ate her.
Ooh.
He was that hungry.
Wow.
What happened afterwards is still shrouded within the myth, but it's believed that after he'd done this, he changed forever. He was no longer human, and he became the father of all Wendigos. He then started hunting his former tribe mates, eating and killing all them. And now all Windigos come from him. So he's like the original progenitor, and then every other Wendigo is like a descendant of this original human turned Wendigo creature.
Okay.
So that's the Fallout lore. I look forward to hearing the true version. But there's the different types of Wendigos in the game. You got the normal one, so a small
the normal
one, quite
obviously. Yep.
the normal one, quite a basic one. And like the other cryptids we talked about, there's a glowing version. Obviously, this is in the aftermath of nuclear war and all the radiation and shit. A ravenous Wendigo, obviously more hungry and a bit harder to defeat than the other Wendigos. Scorched Wendigo, which is a Wendigo infected with the Scorched Plague, which is kind of getting into sort of the game itself. The Scorched are mainly it's human type creatures, and these Scorched beasts come out and they infect and they spray this plague that infects people.
Nice.
The Scorched are kind of like zombies a little bit, maybe, like, and they still like talking human a little bit, so they whisper, so they're like,
okay,
so it's a little bit creepy. And you have the Wendigo Colossus, which is like a 3-headed endgame boss, which is the one that makes you run away in fear. And it's actually quite difficult to defeat, and you definitely need a group of you to go into the cave and try and defeat this Wendigo Colossus. And that's a big. In fact, we use that one for the art for this episode.
Okay,
we can use that one. There's a cool picture we can use for that one.
Nice.
So yeah, that is the Wendigo in the game. Very gruesome backstory with that one.
So some of the things that you've been describing are not too dissimilar to the lore surrounding the real Wendigo. Or I say the real Wendigo. Is it real, or is it folklore, or is it just an animal that gets misdescribed, misidentified? But a lot of these creatures and cryptids that we talk about, not just in this game but other ones, they've all got a basis that there's definitely something has happened to at least one person. So I would talk about Wendigo. So the original Wendigo is from northern Native American tribes. So not saying that this West Virginia one is the same, but they do share many characteristics of the original Native American Wendigo.
Right.
From what I understand, the creature's physiology is between 5 foot and 7 foot tall, very gaunt and sickly thing. So looks rather ill, and in some descriptions, not bulky at all like a bear, werewolf, or Bigfoot, or any other normal stroke paranormal species, because usually they're quite big things, aren't they? Quite scary. And we've some of the other monsters in this game that we've spoken about are quite big, muscly type creatures. It's supposed to have pale grey skin or pale grey fur, canine teeth showing, red or black eyes, bipedal dog-like legs, but long, lanky arms, humanoid hands with claws, and a head that can be like a twisted fanged man or animalistic, usually canine-like. So I think it's a bit like a werewolfy kind of character. If you've watched American Werewolf in London, the picture that I've seen of, or the artist's impression of the Wendigo is a bit like almost like a wolf type head, fangs, but looks very human like. So that sort of lends itself to what you were just talking about in the game. So the beast is a carnivore, and like you mentioned, it's got an unending hunger for flesh. Feeds on man, animals, any living creature, could be solitary or in a small pack. Often said to growl, grunt, moan, and have a blood-curdling scream like a banshee, which ties in with what you said in the game.
Yeah, the shriek.
Shriek. Lives in a dark, damp, isolated area, like a cave, abandoned mines, or forest reclaimed structures, so houses in the woods and those kind of things. Which, if I saw one of them coming out of like a Blair Witch kind of Bell Witch house, I think that'd freak me out. So the beast is a spirit of gluttony, greed, and wrath, associated with cannibalism. Hence why it's got this unnerving thirst for flesh. And according to Native American folklore, the Wendigo is literally a spirit of malice that possesses man and creatures, distorting them and driving them mad to kill and feed, which is exactly how you described it. And he ended up killing and eating his wife, didn't he? Only seen from dusk till dawn while the sun is down, which suggests it's nocturnal or intolerant of lights. Can invade dreams and cause night terrors. Wow. So that sounds like a horrible thing. And may be able to speak human tongue, which ties in with that sort of whispering that you were talking about. Though I doubt anybody would wish to be so close to the said creature to try and listen to it. And whilst it does share characteristics, imagine in your dream you see something like that. Whilst it does share characteristics with werewolves, keep in mind this creature is supposed to be a different in form and action. So it ties in with, if you looked at American Werewolf in London, that film, the character where he transforms into the werewolf, that's the kind of vision I get in my head of what I think it describes.
I watched that not long ago, and it does not hold up.
Doesn't, does it? It doesn't.
Like, I don't remember it being this like this.
This shit. There's loads of horror films. A lot of horror films don't hold up, do they? And you just think, oh, it's a shame. But the one bit that gets me in that film, I haven't seen it for years, but they go into the pub, and it's called The Slaughtered Lamb. It's just like, why would you go into a pub as a traveller in the middle of nowhere to The Slaughtered Lamb? And then they all look at him as he walks in.
It's proper. Yeah, it's all proper weird. And all the men just looking, just walk in. It's just like what the fuck?
And then they like stay on the road. Stay on the road. So yeah, I can imagine that it's something like. So I've actually got an experience from a guy called Brandon Ronk from writing in 2014, and his story around Wendigo. So I will just tell you his experiences right now. His only experiences with the creature are very brief, but happened on a couple of occasions. The first, he was around 10 or so, playing in the woods around his home in honour of Cabell County. There were several expanses of thick woods, tall hills, and deep valleys. The sun just started going down below the hills, and he was walking back on one of the trails. He got a feeling he was being followed the whole way back, and about the time he was just about to cross a creek and into an open field where the house was, he heard crashing in the woods behind him. He ran to the house, slammed the door behind him, looked out the window, and remembers seeing a tall, thin, pale, bipedal dog-like thing peeking out from behind a tree on the opposite side of the creek before vanishing into nothing. And because he was so young, he put it up as his own imagination. So, I mean, I think being that young, I think you probably would, certainly your parents would say that was, you're just being a bit crazy. Second encounter was during high school, so he's sort of mid-teens at that time, while out bow hunting late in the evening near dark. Once more, he was walking out of the same woods, heard a blood-curdling scream that echoed from a couple of hills over. He assumed it was some kind of animal that he wasn't familiar with and just walked home calm but curious, and that was his experience that night. But the third and last time that he had a possible experience was during rifle season when he was about 20 years old in 2011. It was out in Salt Rock, West Virginia, in a deep, dark hollow. After hunting all day, he didn't see a single animal, nothing. No squirrels, no deer, a few birds, but nothing. Dark was approaching, and he said he was frustrated and just hiking out of the hollow and about 3/4 of the way back to his vehicle. He heard movement behind him up on the ridge. He stopped, looked around and listened, looked through the scope and saw nothing. Kept on walking. About 5 minutes later, with about 10 to 15 minutes worth of sunlight left, he heard something on the ridge again. He looked over and saw what he thought was a pack of 4 or 5 coyotes following him about 70 yards up the hill and about 100 yards back, just peeking over the ridge. He had a 270 gauge with him, shotgun. He made sure it was loaded and took his safety cap off and aimed up to the animals to see if they were coyote, dog, deer or what. He said these were not coyote, nor dogs, nor man, not even wolf, which are not even in West Virginia anymore. What he saw instantly flashed back to when he was younger, and he saw a pale, bipedal dog creature. Pale grey skin, fur, lanky arms, and a dog-like head with canine teeth showing. He fired again, and he kept loading his gun with his hands and climbed up and out of the woods as quick, but safe pace, whilst listening behind him the whole time. As he reached the car, he heard something coming towards him, and he was just in the car, so he turned it on and fired again as a warning shot. He got in the car, left, pumping with adrenaline, and after he got home, calmed down, his hunter instinct sort of kicked in, and he said he felt bad for shooting at the unknown creature, but it was hard to accept what he saw. His brain wanted to say it was a wild dog or deer, but it was not. However, he couldn't just let a wounded animal or whatever it was lay there. So the next day he went back to look for it. He found no blood, no tracks, no sign of any movement at all. The squirrels and everything were all back that day. So he counted it as a freak moment and let it be until we started reading up on this creature later on. He said definitely strange things were out there, but he guesses it was a Wendigo type creature. So this guy's had 3 experiences.
Yeah, that's mad.
Yeah. So, yeah, interestingly, that there's no wolves in West Virginia anymore, so it couldn't have been something big like that. So, yeah.
You sometimes
Freaky.
think of, if you've seen the pictures of, like, bears, when, what's the word I'm thinking of? When they're, like, got no hair, and they're, like, malnourished. I can't think what the word is.
I've seen,
And that
I've
looks
seen
like
them.
a creepy creature. You're not expecting to see like a bear like that. Obviously, you don't know what it is. It doesn't look like a bear. It just looks like something totally like just scary,
completely alien. Yeah,
looking across. Yeah, that just like they're like tend to be grey and like sort of torn because obviously the man knows and stuff. And I can't remember what the word is. They're crazy to see. Well, that's some mad stories. I found one from sort of going back to the sort of First Nations. There's a story from the Chippewas of Rama, First Nation in Ontario, in Canada. So we're sort of moving up north a little bit.
Yeah.
And this story is from the early 20th century. And this is a collection of sort of folk stories that have been told over the years. And this time, a big Wendigo stole an Indian boy, but the boy was too thin, so the Wendigo didn't eat him up right away. But he travelled with him, waiting for him till he get fat. The Wendigo had a knife.
Fuck.
The Wendigo had a knife, and then he cut the boy to see if he was fat enough, but the boy didn't get fat. One day, they came to an Indian village in native North Americans, and the Wendigo sent the boy to the Indian village to get something to eat. Sounds a bit mad. It's like, go get something to eat, then come back. But
a bit like Hansel and Gretel. It's a bit like Hansel and Gretel. Yeah.
In fact, this reminds me. This is completely digressing off a different topic now. And we're watching. I think it's a program called Hangar 49 or something like this, and it was like UFO files that are like apparently government UFO files, and there's like episodes based around each file. And Hangar 49 or Hangar 9 or something.
Isn't it like Hangar 18?
Might be Hangar 18.
Because Hangar 18 is the hangar in Area 51 where UFOs are supposedly kept. Big shout out to Dave Mustaine for the song Hangar 18 on Megadeth album.
Nice. Hangar 1, the UFO files, it's called.
Okay.
And it's based on UFON files. There we go, not government files. They're on like some random TV channel I used to watch them on. Anyway, some of them are totally out there. And there was one where this couple in like rural mid-America somewhere, and they were just driving along in the truck, and they see an alien at the side of the road. So they stop, they put him in the truck, they take it back to the house, they give it its tea, and then put it to bed. So they fed it, tucked it up in bed. They then rang the sheriff's office and said, "We've got this alien, like it's in our house, like we fed it." And the sheriff said to him, "All right, we'll come in the morning and have a look." It's not even like coming right away. They said just come the next day and come see him. So they fed it, put it to bed, and then they all just went to bed, just like it's a normal everyday occurrence. And when they woke up the next day, the alien had gone.
Oh, weirdly.
And that's the end of the story. Like,
wow.
I was just like, why just pick up this alien and then just feed it and put it to bed and just casually ring the sheriff and be like, "Yeah, I've got an alien." And the sheriff's even more casual. "Yeah, I'll come around tomorrow. I can't be bothered coming around now. I'll come in the morning."
Yeah, it's too late for that.
That bit where he just for the Wendigo sent him to like the shops to get some food in the village just reminded me of that for some reason. Let's go and get some food. Anyway, so this boy told the villagers that the Wendigo captured him and he was nearby. So they went to try and find him. So they found the Wendigo, cut off his legs, and let's sort of try and injure him. Came back, he wasn't dead. He was eating the marrow from inside the bones of his own legs that were cut off.
Fucking hell. Okay.
They then killed him and cut him to pieces. And then that was the end of that Wendigo.
Wow.
So instead of dying, he decided to eat his own meat.
I'll tell you, we've spoken about it quite a bit, that some people have these really radical experiences, like completely, for want of a better phrase, alien experiences to anything that happens normally. And then they go about their day. Like we spoke to Sasha Christie and her own experience, and like just went back into the house afterwards and just sort of carried on as normal. And I don't know. I don't know what that's all about.
It's mad.
Crazy.
It's mad.
Crazy.
I just want to read this bit just because I
Yeah.
want to try and pronounce this word.
Go on then.
I don't know why I'm going to try and pronounce this because. So, among a lot of the First Nations that sort of have this Wendigo folklore, they performed a satirical ceremonial dance during times of famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo taboo. So, like you mentioned, it's kind of about greed and
Yeah.
sort of not sort of having to resort to cannibalism and stuff to survive. Don't get overpowered by greed, that sort of whole thing. So they do this sort of ceremony, sort of remind people about like the whole greed thing. We're in the famine, we're all in it together. Like share the wealth. Don't just try and look out for yourself. And the ceremony is known as. Let's go. Let's try and say this in one attempt. Windigo Okanzi Himawin. I think
I'll go with that. Yeah.
I think
I'll go with that. I don't know what it is.
With that one. So this involves wearing masks and dancing backwards around the drum. The last known Wendigo ceremony conducted in the USA was at Lake Windigo in the Leech Lake Indian Reservation in northern Minnesota.
Wow.
Doesn't say when, but apparently that's where they used to do the ceremony. One of the places they used to do it.
Yeah, I can imagine that dance where they're doing it backwards with the mask on around a fire. And when I was looking for some the history of the Wendigo, you mentioned it at the start about Canada. It took me to Canada as well. So it appears that the whole of North America seems to have sort of some kind of rich history with this particular cryptid. A very weird looking character, and yeah, fascinating though. And I just think if there is something like that out there, and there quite possibly could be, because there's so much untouched forestry in the US
and caves.
I mean, and caves, and in the UK we've got a smaller amount of that, but you could almost see, like when we've been to Cannock Chase, you could see that something could live in there and evade people a little bit. But out there, it's like hundreds and thousands of acres of like nobody's ever goes to. So I'd like to think that creatures that we haven't found yet exist, and definitely creatures of this kind of supernatural kind of history, because the Native Americans talk about skinwalkers, for example, and those kind of, they all sort of tie in similar type creatures. So there's got to be something to it. There has to be, I'm sure.
Definitely.
But yeah, the Wendigo, crazy sort of creature. Horrible. Wouldn't want to encounter that at all.
Yeah, definitely some mad backstories too as well. Yeah, so that was this month's episode of Fallout 76 and Monsters. Thank you for listening. And next month, I think might be the last one. I'll have to make sure I'm not missing any. But next month will be the Snadagaster.
Oh, I love that.
So, yeah, join us next month for Fallout 76 and Monsters.
Bye.